welcome to Lowcountry Snapshot. I'm your host, Courtney Guthrie. I'm feeling very lucky in my green today because I get to interview Heyward and Barbara Paul. This is a power couple who's lived in a bunch of different places and experienced so many different cultures. I'm excited about meeting you guys. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us. This is great.
So tell me, as a power couple, how did you meet?
We met while we were at university. Heyward was a junior, I was a freshman.
What university?
University of Rochester in Rochester, New York, in snow country.
So you decided to join the military while y'all were dating?
Actually, I was a Navy ROTC scholar at the University of Rochester. So it was a full ride, but it cost me military service for 4 years afterwards. And although it was a Navy ROTC, I had an option to go in the Marine Corps, which I took in my junior year. I didn't like getting seasick. I liked being on land. So that's the way it went.
How did you feel dating a military man?
Well, Rochester was not a military community, so that was quite an eye-opener to me. And of course, during the first year of marriage, we moved 3 times across the country. I mean, I moved it because by that time he had gone overseas to Vietnam. So I then returned back to college.
We got married in November, and then I was already in the Marine Corps. And 8 months later, I was on a ship from California to Okinawa to Vietnam. And poor Barbara had to go back to Rochester to weather the storm there while I was overseas in the early days of Vietnam, 1965 and 1966. I was an artillery officer and in a 105 millimeter howitzer battery, which was interesting. I thought we would be in the rear with the gear, but no, that was not the case. In Vietnam, the front lines were everywhere. So we had a bad night one time, and some of the names of my Marines are on the wall in Washington.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, thank you so much for your service. So what did you do while he was off?
Well, I had not finished college, so I went back and finished college, and I did 1.5 years of college work in a year at my student teaching, and the first week of student teaching was a snow week. So my parents came and got me out of my apartment so I didn't have to stay by myself. But anyway, so I was just about finished with all my degree requirements when he was transferred to Parris Island, and there's no university here at that point. So I took my last 15 hours in correspondence and finished up and had my first teaching job here in Beaufort.
Wow.
We would correspond a lot, letters, no email, none of the stuff.
Calls, no R&R.
Right, but so I'd write, and I got my orders in July to come back to Parris Island, South Carolina, and I forget how it worked, but I wrote to her and said, going to Parris Island. She said, "Where's that?" And I said, "South Carolina." She said, "Where's that?" She was a good Yankee. And so I came down here. I was a series officer and training. I had drill instructors working for me, and we put through a lot of recruits in the year that I was here. And then at the end of that, I thought, you know, my time was just about up for the 4 years, but I really couldn't do anything except be a forward observer for Mayor Daley in Chicago, and I didn't think that would be very useful. So they had an opportunity come out to get into the computer services world, so I applied for that and got selected with 7 other Marine officers, and we were with IBM for about a 6-month training program. Washington, D.C., Albany, Georgia, New York City.
So wait, what were you training to do?
To learn programming and computer services, all that, with IBM. So it was great training. But I was still in the Marine Corps, and now I was going to be a data processing officer, so to speak. And so that took me 3 more years to fulfill that service, part of which was in Southern California at Camp Pendleton at the computer installation there, and then back to Quantico as a trainer of young Marines and Marine officers in the world of programming and computer science.
Okay, so I have 2 nerdy questions for you. What type of computer and what language of programming?
Yeah, it was back in those days, for all the listeners who are my age and older, it was an IBM System 360 and 370, and the training that we would give them was assembler and COBOL and even Fortran, that kind of thing. So that's what I taught them. That's what I did. And that took me through my 7 years. And in the Marine Corps, that was sort of an obligation. And it's interesting, I was getting ready to get out, and I thought, certainly I can get a job in the computer services world. And I applied a bunch of places, but there was only one that said, we'll take you. And that was a company called Electronic Data Systems Corporation, EDS. And it was run by a guy by the name of Ross Perez.
Okay, so Ross Perez, just a little before my time. Tell me who Ross Perez is.
Yeah, Ross was really a giant in the computer services world and a giant of a man. He was a privilege to work for in his company. And he took a lot of military officers who wanted responsibility and to take charge of things. And he would provide the technical training, and I had some, so I had an advantage to that. And I just remember standing outside of my house in Quantico, Virginia, saying, Lord, is this what you really want me to do, get into computers? And he said yes, and I said, okay, I'm in. And so I joined EDS in 1971, and immediately we were moved to San Francisco, California, where I worked. Our account there was California Blue Shield. Then to Dallas for further training, back to California, back to Dallas, and then I got one of these great phone calls from my manager, said, we got a unique opportunity for you, come on up. So I went upstairs and met with the vice president of marketing, and I couldn't believe my ears. He said, we have this great one-time opportunity for you. And I said, okay, where and what? And he said, it's to work in the computer center. I said, okay, where? In Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And I thought, oh, good. Where's that? What did I do wrong? And so that changed our life a lot. So I'd been in Vietnam, of course, Southeast Asia. Now I'm getting ready to go to the Middle East.
Yes, but this time you have to go too. How did you break that?
The VP said to me, okay, here's the opportunity. I said, good, how long do I have to think about it? He said, well, today's Friday, you can let me know Monday. I said, you're kidding. And so I went home, talked to Barbara about it. She said, all right. And I called my dad, and he said, sounds good. Neither one of us knew. And I called her father, Barbara's dad, and he said, they only take good guys and put them around the world. I thought, oh, brother. So off we went. And so we went to Saudi Arabia. We had a son who was 7 and a daughter who was 4. It was a great tour. It was very interesting. It was safe, wonderful. I worked at a university with King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. We worked with some of the top people in Saudi Arabia. They were all well educated. They all spoke English, French, of course, Arabic. And I had a team of 15 men working for me over there. And Barbara and I were the only family to begin with. And then some other families came in later on. But in the 3 years that we were there, it was an exciting adventure.
How do you prepare for this? Like, first of all, did you know how long you were going to spend there?
No.
Okay, so how do you prepare? Do you sell your house? Do you sell all your stuff, or do you ship your stuff to Saudi Arabia? What do you do?
Initially, Heyward's company did not have a contract, so it made no sense to send families there yet. So he went about 6 months ahead of me. Meanwhile, he did a lot of the exploring around and got the house, apartments ready, had a car. So when we got there, some of those questions were taken care of for Saudi Arabia. Now, what do we do with life in the United States? Trying to pretend that it's normal, but he's gone. And we decided to rent our house, and the company would pay for our furniture to go in storage. So we arrived in Saudi Arabia with our clothing and 400 pounds. That was all of our household effects. Needless to say, when we left, it had increased quite a bit because we used a lot of our time off to shop and go in different places of the world.
But we rented our home in Richardson, Texas, and it worked well. We had a good friend who helped us as a realtor, and of course EDS headquarters was there, and Perot was just marvelous in terms of watching over people, There was another operation going on in Iran at the same time, which was larger. And so Perot had these two accounts overseas, one in Saudi Arabia, which I had, and another one in Iran. And so pretty interesting time for him. And it was in the late 70s where this was. So things were calm, cool, and he collected.
So I was worried about Barbie dolls at this time. What was the atmosphere like? What was the relationship like between United States and Saudi Arabia?
Good.
It was very good then.
Very good.
Very good. And as a family, because there weren't a lot of outside influences and activities, we did a lot more together, which was more fitting for children of 5, 6, 7 years old. And I had a teaching job there at the American school. So the kids would go to school with me, I'd come home from school with them. And so my social outlet was taken care of, theirs was too. There was some baseball and soccer teams, swim team, did a lot of snorkeling out in the Red Sea.
Yep.
So there were some special opportunities that the kids had, and it was an international community, and there were a lot of Americans there too. So, I mean, we had a school population of about 1,500.
Did your kids pick up any of the language?
Not too much there. There were 10,000 Americans in Jeddah, a bunch of Brits, French, Japanese, Egyptians, everywhere. Yeah, it was an international community. And Jeddah is on the Red Sea, and Saudi Arabia is sand. I'm not sure if it's a desert or a beach, but we would go snorkeling as Americans. The Saudis didn't do that, but we'd go out to the Red Sea and we'd snorkel, and it was wonderful. The water was like warm, salty. It was great. So Stephen and I would go out to the reef and plunge in, and it was wonderful. And so we had good times doing that.
We had some family camping trips without camping equipment, but we still went out there, and a bunch of the bachelors would join us there too, so it became a company kind of event. And sometimes we camped out at the beach, and we were finished by 10 o'clock in the morning because it was too hot. And talk about hot. Beaufort will never be as hot as there.
But one of the other things was relationship with the Saudis, you were asking. And we had good relationships with the Saudis. I loved working with them. Their English was really good. We had, in fact, many of them were educated in the United States. One of them was had his doctorate in computer science, and he was high up in the university. It was good relationship there. There were a couple of times where we went to their homes, and that was very different. There's a lot of separation between the men and the women when they socialize. When we go to the souk, the marketplace in Jeddah, the women would be completely covered, and we could go around and have a good time shopping. You know, that worked really well. One of the benefits there, though, too, that Perot provided for his people who were over there was a good set of benefits. And one of the benefits was actually being able to travel either back to the United States or to Europe. So Barbara and I traveled throughout the Middle East while we were there and around the Mediterranean. We went to Africa, East Africa for safari. So it was all very interesting. We were in and out of Jordan a number of times, Greece, Italy. So it was a wonderful time in our life.
What about medicine? Did y'all ever get worried about any kind of medical issues?
There was one time when I went over to him with a pain in my side, and I thought, what is this? And he diagnosed it as a kidney stone. And he said, here's the best thing to do with that is drink a lot of water and jump up and down. And so I did that, and he gave me some medication on that too, but that was no fun for a few days. But and it was a natural thing to have happen over there because everything was so hot and dry, you had to just drink a lot of water all the time.
And you were never in any danger?
No.
No.
Never.
In fact, we didn't even have a key to our apartment. For the first 6 to 8 months we lived there, we never even locked it.
There's one, we have a million funny stories. There's one cute one. Our son was home alone, and he would dress up, and
He was 9 years old.
Baseball bat and helmet on, football helmet, and around the house. And some lady who was a Haji, they would come to Mecca, and Jeddah was the stop on the way to Mecca. And this Haji lady came in upstairs into our apartment and opened up the door, which was always unlocked. And there was Stephen with his bat and his helmet and saying, "La, la," which means no, no, you can't come in. And the lady saw that little kid with a bat and a helmet. She skedaddled. It was fun.
He had wooden shoes on, too.
It was really funny. Stephen told us the story later.
Okay, is this where you had the Welfare P?
Yep. Welfare P was a Protestant service. The Catholics were Welfare C. And we couldn't really meet in a church. We were Christians and active in our church back home, and I wanted to continue that in Saudi Arabia. We couldn't proselytize at all, but we could meet, and it was okay to meet. It was sanctioned by the local government. So we met in an unmarked building on the Raytheon compound, and there were probably 250 people in the church, and it was non-denominational Protestant. Catholics met in the same place at a different time, and it really worked well. We had a Baptist pastor who came in, and he was actually a counselor with one of the companies that was there, Whitaker, but he was really a pastor. So he would hold the church services, and we had a piano there, so we would be able to sing hymns. And some people talk about singing in tongues. I'll tell you what singing in tongues is. When we're there singing "How Great Thou Art," and you're standing next to a Korean worker who's singing it in his language, I'll tell you, it is really great. And so the whole congregation, 250 people, maybe more, from all over the world, France, Korea, Japan, England,
Pakistan.
Yep, Pakistan, Egypt. So there were Christians everywhere. It was a picture of heaven.
Nice. Okay, so how did that end and what came next?
After being there for about 2.5 years, we were kind of ready to go. We had the account in good shape. It was going to continue on. I had a replacement manager there, and there were 2 options where we could go. We were told 3. Actually, we could go back to the States and repatriate. We were still interested in staying overseas, and there were 2 needs. One of them was in Holland, in Amsterdam, and the other one was in London. And I was really betwixt and between. And so I said, "Okay, Lord, where?" And he said, "Check with your boss." So I asked my boss, I said, "Where do you think I should go?" And he said, "London." So we went to London. And I basically ran the account there with a retailing firm, C&A Modes. And we did a couple of things. One was to set up a computer center for them, relocate the computer center from London to Dusseldorf, Germany, and then help run and develop systems for the retailing firm. That was what we did. And there were only 6 of us there at the time, and then we added some more. And we'd work with the Brits and the Dutch and the Germans. It was wonderful. And so Barbara loved London, I loved it, and I would make the circuit between London, Amsterdam, and Dusseldorf. We did that for 4 years. It was a great job. I loved it.
Again, there was an American school there. Actually, there's several, but our children went to an American school. And again, quite a few nationalities represented there, but they had lots of sports activities, scouting, everything. So it met all the social and academic needs that we had. And I came from an English family. So I made it a point to look up my English relatives. And I don't know who was more curious, me for them or the English relatives for us. But in any case, I found about 50 of them. So we've had several family reunions. My father would come over. I would spend days down at the Bureau of Records searching out deaths and births and marriages for all the family members. My grandfather was one of 22 children, and he had a very unusual surname. So it was real easy to trace all these people.
But the great-grandfather, he was a guy. His name was William, and he was married twice. The first had 3 children. The second one, the poor woman, 19 children. We weren't sure if this guy was called Sweet William or Dirty Bill, but it was great. We didn't know him, but we met a lot of these 19.
Oh, that's incredible.
And then those 19 scattered to Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the United States. And some stayed in England too. So the family is well scattered now.
But from that, we still correspond with some of the people that we met over there, some of Barbara's relatives.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So did you feel a big cultural shift after you had spent that time in Saudi Arabia and going to London?
Yeah, we were working our way back to the Western civilization. You know, that was it.
From the desert to the garden spot. It was beautiful there.
London was wonderful.
And London never got any hotter. I mean, couldn't get any hotter than the coldest day in Saudi Arabia. 70 degrees is about as hot as it got in London.
But the office where I worked was in the West End of London. As apart from downtown city, we were still in the city, but not the real city. West End in the theater district, and it was good. So I would get on the train every morning, and an hour later I'd walk into the office and ride in the train with all the Brits. That was a lot of fun.
And you don't talk in the train either, or the newspapers start rattling.
Is that how they showed displeasure?
Yeah. It was fun.
Did they joke about your accent at all?
Yeah, I mean, we get it from time to time, but we work hand in hand with the Brits. I remember one time I was in Amsterdam, walked into the office there, and one of my Dutch friends was on the phone talking to a guy in German, and he was babbling back and forth in German. There was another Dutchman there, and so they switched back to Dutch between the two of them. I walked into the office and said, "Hi, Heyward, how you doing?"
Did they joke about your accent at all?
Yeah, I mean, we get it from time to time, but we work hand in hand with the Brits. I remember one time I was in Amsterdam, walked into the office there, and one of my Dutch friends was on the phone talking to a guy in German, and he was babbling back and forth in German. There was another Dutchman there, and so they switched back to Dutch between the two of them. I walked into the office and said, "Hi, Heyward, how you doing?" So they were switching in 3 languages just like that. I mean, the Dutch were amazing with that. I would go to these other meetings, and they call it the Mittwoch meeting, the midweek meetings in Germany. They would have the meetings in English for me. I mean, I was the only one who couldn't speak other languages.
Wow. Okay, so you go from London, you come back home.
We come back to the United States,
Yeah.
but we establish a home in a different location again.
Okay. And how are you staying busy now?
We left the business world, and now we're in Christian missions. And so the Lord has set us up the whole time. So now we're in an international ministry, and we travel around the world. And our organization is based in Atlanta, but it's international. And so we go to Africa, South Asia, Europe, and work with our men there. Barbara's a teacher, I'm a teacher, so we go on teaching assignments to these places. It's great.
So all of the history you had with the different backgrounds, have you found that helped play?
Totally.
In what way?
It set us up so that we could go easily without fear and mingle with other cultures. So we were unafraid to go, and mingling with people who spoke different English, we could make it work.
And what are you teaching them?
Bible. We always teach them Bible. So we're going in about a month to Zambia, and we'll be working with our man there and doing some pastor training. Barbara was going to be working with some ladies there. There's 2 more who are going to join us, a guy from Georgia and a lady in our organization from Michigan. So we're looking forward to that. We've been to Zambia a number of times.
So Africa, where else?
Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe.
Slovakia, Romania, Ukraine. That's frequently there. To the Philippines, Cambodia, Myanmar.
Do you get a lot of interaction with the people outside of the people you're teaching, like just with the community?
Some. I'm not sure I would say a lot, but certainly with our guys. And when we have 40 pastors, surely we'll mingle with them. So yeah, we mix. When we go to Slovakia, it's a romance. It's just wonderful to be with these people. Same with Romania. I mean, we mingle with all of them. It's good.
So, and do they ever come here?
Yep, they do.
So do I get an opportunity to meet any of these fine?
In fact, you're sitting in a chair where some of them will sit and some of them will stand right over here.
Yeah, we
and they'll
expect
teach
some in the
to our
fall.
folks. Yep. So we have a Bible study on Tuesday nights here at our home. And when our guys come in, they'll come in and share, and they'll do it. And we'll put them up in our own home, and we'll farm them out to other people who would like to take them to meet individuals from another culture who are also in ministry. It's really good. I'll introduce them to churches and business people to help them raise support.
That's amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
You're quite welcome. It was fun.